You can start, Mathaji.
Yanam namaskritya naram chaiva narottamam devim saraswatim vyasam tadho jayam mudirayet nastya prayeshu bhadreshu nityam bhagavada sevaya bhagavad uttama shloke bhaktir bhavati naistiki om atnana timirandhasya ज्ञानाञ्जन शलाकया चक्षुरुन्मीलितं येन तस्मै श्रीगुरवे नमः मूकं करोति वाचालं पङ्कुं लङ्घयते गिरिं यत्कृपात्वमहं वन्दे श्रीगुरुं दीनतारिणम् ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय ॐ नमो भगवते वासुदेवाय Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 3, Chapter 26, verse 72, which is the last verse in this chapter. Tam asmin pratyagatmanam dhiya yoga pravrittaya bhaktya virakyatmanena vivichyatmani chintayet. Tam asmin pratyagatmanam dhiya yoga pravrittaya bhaktya virakyatmanena vivichyatmani chintayet. Tam asmin pratyagatmanam dhiya yoga pravrittaya bhaktya virakyatmanena vivichyatmani chintayet. Word meaning, tam upon him, asmin in this, pratyak atmanam the super soul, dhiya with the mind, yoga pravrittaya engaged in devotional service, bhaktya through devotion, viraktya through detachment, jnanena through spiritual knowledge, vivichya considering carefully, atmani in the body, chintayet one should contemplate. The translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Therefore, through devotion, detachment, and advancement in spiritual knowledge, acquired through concentrated devotional service, one should contemplate that super soul as present in this very body, although simultaneously apart from it. Therefore, through devotion, detachment, and advancement in spiritual knowledge, acquired through concentrated devotional service, one should contemplate that super soul as present in this very body, although simultaneously apart from it. Srila Prabhupada's purport. One can realize the super soul within oneself. He is within one's body, but apart from the body, or transcendental to the body. Although sitting in the same body as the individual soul, the super soul has no affection for the body, whereas the individual soul does. One has to detach himself, therefore, from this material body by discharging devotional service. It is clearly mentioned here, bhaktya, that one has to execute devotional service to the Supreme, as it is stated in the first canto, second chapter of Srimad Bhagavatam 1 to 7. Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha. When Vasudeva, the all-pervading Vishnu, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is served in completely pure devotion, detachment from the material world immediately begins. The purpose of Sankhya is to detach oneself from material contamination. This can be achieved simply by devotional service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. When one is detached from the attraction of material prosperity, one can actually concentrate his mind upon the Supersoul. As long as mind is distracted towards the material, there is no possibility of concentrating one's mind and intelligence upon the Supreme Personality of Godhead or his partial representation, the Supersoul. In other words, one cannot concentrate one's mind and energy upon the Supreme unless one is detached from the material world. Following detachment from the material world, one can actually attain transcendental knowledge of the absolute truth. As long as one is entangled in sense enjoyment or material enjoyment, it's not possible to understand the absolute truth. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita 1854. One who is freed from material contamination is joyful and can enter into devotional service. And by devotional service, he can be liberated. In the Srimad Bhagavatam, first canto, it is stated that one becomes joyful by discharging devotional service. In that joyful attitude, one can understand the signs of God or Krishna consciousness. Otherwise, it is not possible. The analytical study of the elements of material nature and the concentration of the mind upon the Supersoul are the sum and substance of the Sankhya philosophical system. The perfection of this Sankhya culminates in devotional service to the absolute truth. So there are three things here. One performs devotional service in a joyful state, and the analytical study of the elements of material nature and concentration of the mind upon the super soul. That is the sum and substance of Sankhya. However, Prabhupada gives the final thing that the perfection of Sankhya culminates in devotional service to the absolute truth. Om Atnana Timirandhasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurunmilitam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. So it so happened that the previous verse I spoke last month, which was verse number 18, also was referring to the Supreme Lord, who is fully present in every atom of creation, in his full potency. He is present within every single atom of creation as the Super Soul, and that is internally, and externally, he is managing everything in the form of time. Once again, this chapter is concluding. This chapter conclusion is uh, um, that one has to concentrate one's mind upon the Supreme Lord as Super Soul, and through that one develops devotion, detachment, and advancement in spiritual knowledge. And Prabhupada is giving the punchline at the end: and engage in devotional service to the absolute truth, the Supreme Personality of Godhead Himself. So, in the beginning, the goal of explaining these analysis of elements, three important things: devotion, detachment, and spiritual knowledge. So, in the first part of the purport, Srila Prabhupada is pointing out that even though the soul and super soul are situated within this material body, the super soul has got no affection for this body. On the other hand, the individual soul has deep affection, and hence the need of detachment from all that is material. And Prabhupada writes that the purpose of Sankhya is to detach oneself from this material contamination. When one is detached, then only one can concentrate one's mind upon the Supreme Lord. And when the mind is distracted, there is no possibility of engaging the mind and intelligence in the service of the Lord. And without that detachment, one cannot attain this transcendental knowledge. So the individual souls being so attached, the individual soul is on the opposite side of the spiritual, even though both are situated within our material body. Because of the difference in nature, it is so important to practice devotional service. And Prabhupada is giving this verse from Srimad Bhagavatam 1.2.7, Vasudeve Bhagavati Bhakti Yoga Prayojitaha Janayatyasu Vairagyam Nanam Chayat Haitukam. By rendering devotional service unto the personality of Godhead Sri Krishna, one immediately attains causeless knowledge and detachment from the world. So Prabhupada clearly is stating in this purport, the purpose of Sankhya is to detach oneself from material contamination, and this can be achieved through devotional service alone. So in the scriptures, various scriptures, there are so many different processes described for transcendental realization. And some may recommend sacrifice, some may recommend charity or austerity, knowledge, mystic powers, so many different things. And different people have emphasized different ways in which one can accomplish this. And some people have even gone to the extent of saying that devotional service is meant for those who are simple natured, or more of devotional activities are more of an emotional affair. This kind of interpretations are there. And also people say that this devotional service is meant for those people who cannot perform these other so-called um, intellectual processes, or according to them, those are the advanced methods or higher methods compared to the process of devotion. But they do not understand that the devotional service that is recommended in Srimad Bhagavatam, devotional service to the Supreme, that is the topmost of all transcendental activities. That Vasudeva Bhagavati verse clearly explains that everything that we need to attain is easily available by the mercy of the Lord when we simply execute our devotional service to Him. The beauty of the bhakti process is that it is sublime for those who are pure devotees, who are serious practitioners. And at the same time, it is equally accessible to those who are just in the threshold of entering into the process of bhakti. So it is meant for perfected beings as well as those who are just the beginners. This is the beauty of bhakti. And so this great science, it is open to all classes of living beings, and people from all walks of life can execute this, from the lowest person in the street to the high class of people like that of qualified brahmanas and saintly and self-realized kings. And we have studied about this in Srimad Bhagavatam extensively, so many examples of qualified brahmanas and saintly kings. Same time, it is applicable to a common person who has no understanding of any of these things. Another point that Srila Prabhupada is discussing in this purport is discussion about spiritual knowledge and detachment. Prabhupada says that on the path of transcendental realization, both knowledge and detachment are two important factors. So what happens that in the process of practicing bhakti, these two things, knowledge and detachment, it automatically happens. You don't need to put in any extra effort. One somehow or other, one is able to um, uh, lose one's taste in inferior things, and one gets attached to the Supreme Being, Krishna. All of this happens not just by one's effort alone, but it happens by the grace of the Supreme Lord. So, in essence, um, a pure devotee, by the grace of the Supreme Lord, he will automatically develop knowledge and detachment. But it's very important for us to understand that there are many other people in this world who practice knowledge and detachment. They need not necessarily be devotees of the Lord. And so, by artificially practicing just detachment or knowledge, one is not going to get the benefit of that grace which is coming from the Supreme Lord. One other point regarding detachment from this material entanglement of the mind, um, Prabhupada is writing that the entanglement of mind upon the Supreme Lord is the most essential component. Engagement, not entanglement. The engagement of the mind upon the Supreme Lord is the most essential component. So Prabhupada writes, when mind is distracted towards material, there is no possibility of concentrating the mind and intelligence upon the Supreme Lord or his partial representation, which is the Super Soul. So that once again brings us back to the mind. Krishna, the Supreme Lord, Krishna has already given us so many wonderful verses in Bhagavad Gita about how to deal with the mind. But one thing that we can all see is even after studying the message of Krishna, many people struggle. It's a huge struggle how to deal with the mind, how to let go of the past, present, and future also. One need to develop this ability to move on. One has to develop this ability to move on without retaining the lingering attachments to anything. So there are several factors that contributes towards this clinging nature, clinging to many things in life, not being able to let go. This is one of our biggest problems, or carrying what you call as mental burdens. One has to learn the art of putting down mental burdens. There are negative elements like anger and attachment, guilt. These are all problems that plague humans. So we have to cultivate that purity of mind and intentions for our own good. Because if the mind is not pure, if the heart is not pure, how can the Supreme Lord be invited to reside there? Many times we have resentments of past injuries. People carry these injuries within their heart. There will be feelings of resentment, very difficult to let go. Anxieties about the future. You can see that all the time. Uncertainties, so many uncertainties, mind is always oscillating, and there is this problem of judgment. Sometimes the judgment is upon oneself, and sometimes it's judgment upon others. So one has to learn to set the burden down and let go of things which are of no consequence to us at all. There is no need to linger upon those things. This is called as like a mental proliferation. We can see in our society or in our own group of seriously practicing practitioners of devotional life, unnecessarily lingering upon things and mentally proliferating on thought processes that happens when so many things happen in this world. We are living in this material world, and so many things are going to happen. We are living at a time where the social media is a big influence, and you start perpetuating these thoughts that come to your mind because of the constant feeding of all sorts of information, which doesn't concern. It may be happening in this material world where we are living, but we need not be lingering upon it or perpetuating it. If we do that, it is our biggest loss, because our time is too valuable to be taken away by those things. And Prabhupada is concluding this purport that performing devotional service is a joyful in a joyful attitude. Then one will understand God. And Prabhupada is concluding analytical study of the elements of material nature and concentration of the mind upon the supersoul are the sum and substance of Sankhya philosophy. So he's talking about concentration of the mind upon the supersoul. And now he's taking in the last word, he's telling that, what is that? He says that, and then engage in devotional service to the absolute truth. So perfection of Sankhya culminates in devotional service to the absolute truth. So I would like to conclude this with a description of little bit of a description of the Purusha avatars. And as we know, there is three different Purusha avatars. And Jiva Goswami writes extensively about this. And I'll just read just very quickly a short description, something relating to this, and a beautiful description about Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu in Srimad Bhagavatam. So, without wasting a little more time, let me just try to finish this. Know that all living beings are part and parcel of the unborn Supreme Personality of Godhead. When the individual souls, trapped by their own past material desires, come to this material world, the Supreme Personality of Godhead follows them to set them free. And when he appears in this material world, the super soul is called as Purusha Avatar. The Supreme Personality of Godhead manifests himself as the all-pervading super soul, the witness present in the hearts of all living entities. He witnesses all activities of the living entity. He is the supreme living force, yet he is transcendental to all material qualities. That's what was in this particular verse. Even though the soul and super soul are situated within the same body, he has no attachment. Now, there's an interesting analogy given by Jiva Goswami. He says, an unborn man enjoys an unborn red, white, and black woman who bears many children like herself. Another unborn man renounces this woman and will not enjoy with her. So this unborn woman, Jiva Goswami is saying, it is the material nature. And this red, white, and black is representing the three modes, goodness, passion, and ignorance. So the many children that are referenced here are the ingredients of the material universe. And the first unborn man mentioned in this quote is the soul. And the soul is interacting with this material nature and produces many children. Whereas the super soul, on the other hand, even though the second unborn man, the super soul, even though he's situated within this body, he is always aloof from the material nature. So the Lord, as super soul, he is as Purusha Avatar, he's entering, he's creating this Mahat Tattva. He's entering within as Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu. He's entering in his fullness in every single atom of creation, and yet he is untouched. And that Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, there is this beautiful meditation upon him. I will conclude with this right now. That second Purusha, Garbhodaka Sai Vishnu, this description is so fascinating. And you can imagine that is the different expressions of Purusha avatars are only, after all, partial representation of the Lord. And then you can imagine, the description of Krishna, um, how that would be. Like, we have so many verses in Srimad Bhagavatam anyway, but let us focus on this because there is specific mention about Purusha avatars in this verse, in this particular section. So this is Srimad Bhagavatam 8th canto. At the end of Brahma's 100 years, when his meditation was complete, he developed the required knowledge, and as a result, he could see in his heart the Supreme within himself, whom he could not see before with the greatest endeavor. Brahma could see that on the water there was a gigantic lotus-like white bedstead, the body of Sheshanag, on which the personality of Godhead was lying alone. The whole atmosphere was illuminated by the rays of the jewels bedecking the hood of Sheshanag, and that illumination dissipated all the darkness of those regions. The luster of the transcendental body of the Lord mocked the beauty of the coral mountain. The coral mountain is very beautifully dressed by the evening sky, but the yellow dress of the Lord mocked its beauty. There is gold on the summit of the mountain, but the Lord's helmet, bedecked with jewels, mocked it. The mountain's waterfalls, herbs, etc., with a panorama of flowers, seem like garlands, but the Lord's gigantic body and his hands and legs, decorated with jewels, pearls, tulasi leaves, and flower garlands, mocked the scene on the mountain. His transcendental body, unlimited in length and breadth, occupied the three planetary systems, upper, middle, and lower. His body was self-illuminated by unparalleled dress and variegatedness and was properly ornamented. The Lord showed his lotus feet by raising them. His lotus feet are the source of all awards achieved by devotional service, free from material contamination. Such awards are for those who worship him in pure devotion. The splendor of the transcendental rays from his moon-like toenails and fingernails appeared like the petals of a flower. He also acknowledged the service of the devotees and vanquished their distress by his beautiful smile. The reflection of his face, decorated with earrings, was so pleasing because it dazzled with the rays from his lips and the beauty of his nose and eyebrows. My dear Vidura, the Lord's waist was covered with yellow cloth resembling the saffron dust of the kadamba flower, and it was encircled by a well-decorated belt. His chest was decorated with a Srivatsa marking and a necklace of unlimited value. As a sandalwood tree is decorated with fragrant flowers and branches, the Lord's body was decorated with valuable jewels and pearls. He was self-situated tree. He was the self-situated tree, the Lord of all others in the universe. And as a sandalwood tree is covered with many snakes, so the Lord's body was covered by the hoods of Ananta. Like a great mountain, the Lord stands as the abode for all moving and non-moving living entities. He is the friend of the snakes because Lord Ananta is his friend. As a mountain has thousands of golden peaks, so the Lord was seen with the thousands of golden helmeted hoods of Anantanag. And as a mountain is sometimes filled with jewels, so his transcendental body was fully decorated with valuable jewels. As a mountain is sometimes submerged in the ocean water, so the Lord is sometimes submerged in the waters of devastation. So this most beautiful form of the Lord lying on the white bed of Sheshanag, sometimes his body is covered with water and sometimes his body is visible. Such a beautiful description. So to conclude it, this concentrated devotional service, which is specified in this verse, one can come to that um, by this practice of devotion. And what is this practice of devotion? It is appreciation of the beauty of the Lord. And one has to develop this meditational quality in this process of chanting that we have been given. So chanting cannot be dry. It has to be um, with our heart, with our feelings, with our emotions. And this beauty of the Lord is enough to um, give us so much to think about. Just this last part which described his body was submerged in the his body is lying on the white bed of Sheshanag, and sometimes his body is in the water and sometimes it is visible like a mountain beautifully decorated with so many jewels and ornaments and tulasi leaves and flower garlands. Isn't it enough to captivate the heart of the living entities? So once again, coming back to the problem that we usually face is the training of the mind and intelligence, and it is a must. And the easiest way of uh, putting down that mental burden is focusing that mind upon the beauty of the Lord. There is no point in carrying something, resentments and resentments for things that has happened in the past, anxieties for things that are going to happen in the future, and current affairs. And current affairs is something which excites everybody. Everybody jumps to whatever is happening at this point of time. But is it going to help us in any way in our journey towards the Supreme Lord? The Lord doesn't take anything less than pure devotion from us. And to attain that, one has to put in some real serious efforts, concentrated devotional service. That's actually the message of this particular verse. Concentrated devotional service. There is so much packed in that one single word. This is not a part time something that we do. With that, I conclude. Thank you very much. Hare Krishna. Anybody want to add something? It would be wonderful. I think we are done. Lakshmi Kanda Prabhu.
Hare Krishna,
So,
Mathaji.
yeah.
I think we'll wait for a few seconds, maybe if anyone has any comments to share. I think it was very nice class, Mathaji. I think we talked about, I think I summarized at the end. I was looking for that message. So I think what you overall class is about. So yeah, I mean,
Yeah, very
focusing on Supreme Lord
okay.
will help us to come out of those, I mean, the past and the future, I mean, future anxieties and the past resentments. So they're
Uh,
going to be,
Yeah, this is called perpetuating the mental problems, and we all have that. And we are the cause of that because we don't know how to let go. We are kind of stuck in at certain points, many times stimulated by current world affairs, and many times the rest of the time regretting about what happened in the past and or imagining things which will not may or may not happen in future, and and forgetting to live in the present in the right consciousness. And this we can see all the time when we come together in every single thing, every activity that we do. It's not concentrated devotional service, and concentrated devotional service is required, and you're very clear in this verse.
yes, Mathaji.
Hare Krishna Mataji, please accept my
Yes,
humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much, Mataji, sir, for such a wonderful narration. My thoughts went to when you were talking about, how powerful, how anxious we are. When it comes to social media, immediately my mind went to this devotional process is very, very important. If we are not sticking to that, it's very tricky, even one message, say for example, we might think, okay, I'm living in this material world, I should know what's happening around me. We will see one message what's happening around me. You know what happens, the social media is very tricky. It will make you to, pull you again and again, make you feed messages after messages after messages, and make you to completely, that totally devour us. So unless or otherwise, we really come out of that and take this process very seriously, it's very tricky and it's very powerful, I'm telling, I've observed. So completely coming out of that is very, very important. So my mind went to that, or else it's going to completely consume me for sure. So this
yeah,
devotional process, how important it is. Thank you so much for emphasizing, Mataji. Hare Krishna.
that is there in this verse. It is very clearly said: concentrated devotional service and engagement of the mind and purification, and all these things are there already in Bhagavad Gita. Krishna clearly says that we are not able to clearly we are not able to grasp what that really means, and no matter how long we are discussing these things, we keep repeating that same mistake knowingly. And at least one good thing is that for those who are practicing, there is a constant awareness of when you are deviating, the constant awareness is there. And that still doesn't really give you the incentive to make a very special effort how to do what to do. That's where everybody struggles. And 99.9% of the time, most of the things that we are dwelling upon is our own imagination. And living in a community of devotees, how to cooperate and happily live together, keeping Krishna in the center, that is the focus of all of us. At least that's why we are here. But when every person, the moment you allow the mind to take over and allow it to proliferate, the kind of thinking that is coming in there as a result of um, whatever, whether it is social media input or one's own thought process, because we all have this feeling of that everybody should hear what we have to say until everybody heard it, until we prove it that I am right. Um, we are not going to keep quiet. And so when that happens, what happens is the mind is gone. It is like it's gone in a wrong direction because you have already proliferated your thoughts to such an extent you are able to not able to put it down. That mental burden, it increases and increases, and you feed upon that and again additional things. And therefore, even though we have come to this path, we don't understand what it is concentrated devotional service, specifically stated in this verse, concentrated devotional service. How can it happen? And that's why we are here though, and we cannot let go, because after we invested all our confidence, time and energy in this process, are we going to let it go? We need to show our sincerity to Krishna. We have to do it the right way. So no other choice.
How beautiful word, right? Concentrated devotional service.
Yes.
I really like that word, because if not, one thing or the other is always happening around us, like, some
Yeah.
killing, shooting, something, okay, yes, we have to be compassionate on, whatever happening around us. But, if you start focusing on one incident, other moment, maybe one or two cases are like, highlighted and bring to our attention in the social media. But every moment, dukkalem ashashvatam, it's happening every moment. Is everything coming out? If we keep, okay, I want to know about this matter, then immediately, more messages is going to come, and it's going to consume us, instead of that constant, very focused attention in devotional service. Nothing is the solution, right? Yeah, how much ever we think this is the only practical way for us to get protected.
Also, there is another side to this, is that our influence is only within, there is a limit within which we can function. There are, even though we may have opinions about everything that is happening in this world, we may desire for world peace. We do not want to see atrocities happening to anyone, and whether it is here or anywhere else, we don't want to. But the point is that, are we able to physically, or emotionally, mentally, are we able to support any of those living entities? And the best way each one can do that is through prayers and seeking the protection of the Supreme Lord. And while the world events will unfold, the material world, even though it is real, it is temporary. Somehow or other, things are going to be continuing to happen. But we need to develop the purity of thought. We need to develop that service to the Supreme in such a way that by His grace there will be the reciprocation. So if we underestimate the potency of pure devotional service, if there are many, many, many devotees in this world who maintain that purity of heart and purity of mind, and depend upon the Supreme Lord and pray to Him. That's why devotees' prayers are so very important. And we can probably contribute, each individual can contribute something good for the world, the people living in this world, by our practice of devotion, and benefit the people around us. There are so many people who come to our temple, share, each devotee sharing what they have learned. It is not that one day you become a scholar of all the scriptures and then suddenly something happens. No, the scholarship is one thing. We need that intellectual purification as well. We need to study the scriptures, but it's not that you as a devotee, uh, how you share your experience with others. I met a girl from Korea during my visit to New Vrindavan, and I saw such an intense desire for practice of devotion in her life. She shared with me, and it was like in one of those interactive exercise times. She was sitting next to me, and I spent considerable time with her because I was trying to understand their the spiritual practice in that country, and how did she come across uh, this practice of Krishna consciousness. She came as a student, and they have a religious practice called paganism. But the Korean culture is also very, there's a traditional Korean culture. But in spite of all that type of background, I mean, Japanese came and they invaded and occupied the place for 30 plus years, and tortured the people who are the previous generation, like their grandparents and all. Uh, but in spite of all those things, trying to destroy their culture by various methods, it's very, what to say, very tough times they had lived through. But she, after she came to this country, and she during COVID times, she took up the study of astrology, and it so happened the person who taught her astrology was he was a devotee, and that's how she got to know Krishna consciousness. And from the moment she was exposed, she felt, she got this absolute trust that God exists and this is who God is. And then she was discussing with me something about her current situation, where, I mean, about the question of faith and so many related things, things related to faith. And so I spent quite some time with her, and it was, I noticed also that the way she was practicing, way she was doing japa, the way she was attending kirtan, everything was fully absorbed. And she shared with me some other things that she did on her own during the retreat. And I can clearly see that sincerity of purpose in her whole personality. So somehow Krishna was very merciful to her. So it doesn't matter whether you are living in Korea or China or Russia. There are some special souls who are given this mercy and who take it really seriously. You never know who you come across where. So ultimately, I think each one of us who are practicing, when we are coming across uh, people in this, in our small sphere of influence, how best we can share with them, how we can inspire them, not pull them down. If we pay our attention to what is going on in this material world around us too much and get too much distracted and overly concerned about things which we cannot even um, really find a solution to, whether it is within the spiritual organization itself, within our own ISKCON, or whether it is outside of ISKCON, world, uh, what you call it as the important events that are happening in this world. Our real influence is within our small area of influence. And how do we influence? By being who we are and genuinely sharing with them. And they find motivation and they want to be with you. Each one of us, especially initiated group of devotees, need to do that. And then the community will be beautiful. And for that, we have to strengthen ourselves. We cannot be taking things lightly, and and it will nurture us and it will nurture everybody else also. I think this discussion again went 20 minutes, and I know all of you understand all these things, but still it is nice to speak about that. So shall we stop it here? Lakshmi Kanta Prabhu? Or I don't know if she is here or not.
Yes, Mataji.
Anyone?
Yeah.
Okay. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna. Thank you.